Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about stakeholders. So how this concept first emerged and what are its implications. First of all, we have to understand that how stakeholder concept came to be and why it is so important in today's business world. First, stakeholder concept was exclusively a part of the gambling culture and it was in the early 18th century. Then after that, in the late 19th century, the primacy of the stakeholders happened. In 1940s, it was becoming a concept. The managers are exclusively part as trustee or they would manage the overall company or similar factors. And in the 1960s, stakeholder was identified as a concept. And after that, in the 1960s, in the early 1980s, many books were written about the stakeholders and it was incorporated into corporate strategies and economic-based stakeholder management and economic stakeholders are also considered. But what are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are any group of people that may be affected by the organization's achievement of its objectives. Even if the organization doesn't achieve its objectives, the attempt to achieve it and the activities that the organization conduct, it affects some parties, and those parties are the stakeholders. If we consider from the company's perspective, first the stakeholders are the obvious, the shareholders, then the employees, then the suppliers from which they collect the raw materials, and after that there is the consumers who are of course the king, but they are also a stakeholder. Then we have the communities, then we have the society, government, and there may be some other stakeholders as well. So these are the main stakeholders, and if we consider these stakeholders and the overall different business perspectives like management, marketing, they all emphasize the stakeholders. And why is that? Since even the customers are included in the stakeholder, it simply cannot be ignored. And all the other factors like the society, the government, the employees, they are also a crucial part of the overall concept of the business and the overall business strategy. And for that reason, there are a number of factors that the business organization needs to consider and they must satisfy the stakeholders. And of course, there are scenarios that they might not be able to satisfy all the stakeholders at once. Then they will have to identify which stakeholders are more important and try to satisfy those. But there are some factors that might be considered because even if the organization doesn't have the capability to satisfy all the stakeholders, if they ignore anyone of them, it might create an adverse effect for them. So they have to consider all the stakeholders in an equal manner, and of course, overemphasize one if the certain scenario arises. So stakeholders are a group of parties who are affected by the organization's achievement of its goals. So these stakeholders, if they are satisfied, it will result in a positive situation for the organization. And in today's competitive business environment, if the business organization doesn't maintain this type of factors, they are going to be in a huge problem. And to ensure that they do not face problems like this, they will need to ensure that there is a department or a whole organization to ensure that they are satisfying the stakeholder. The best strategy here is to ensure that it is incorporated into all the departments that is in the organization and guiding them towards satisfying the stakeholders. And of course, stakeholders can be some other parties like regulatory bodies, industry groups, but that those are other factors. All the factors, it exactly means that any party that are affected by the organization's activity, they will be a stakeholder. So it is as simple as that. Many people confuse stakeholder with shareholders. Shareholders are stakeholders, but not all stakeholders are shareholders. So that is a fact, because there is a huge difference between shareholder and stakeholder. Stakeholder is any party who is being affected, and shareholder is a party who has invested in the business. So as they have invested in the business, they are of course affected, because when the organization makes profit, they get profit. If the organization doesn't make profit, they will have to face the loss. So they are of course a stakeholder, but there are some other stakeholders as well, like the customers. Even what the organization is actually doing doesn't really matter much to the customer. If the customer is being satisfied, that is the main factor. Even if the organization makes a huge amount of profit, it is going to give nothing to the customer. But the customer is a valuable stakeholder, and one might argue that it is the most important stakeholder there is to be, because all the activities revolve around the customers. So the main factor here is that stakeholder include shareholders, but shareholders are not stakeholders. And as I started from the beginning, I first described the stakeholders concept, and as we can see that it is a huge concept and there is shareholders in it. But in the shareholders concept, that is, shareholders are any party that invest in the organization for certain purposes. The purpose can be of various types. For example, if it's a non-profit organization, it can be a donation, but usually it is a profit organization where the shareholder might invest his money to make profit, to earn interest, and this dividend or profit that he is going to gain, they are going to use it to maintain his everyday life or whatever he wants to do, or maybe he might create his own business. That is another scenario. But that is the shareholder. And stakeholder, they are the huge parties that are affected by the organization's achievement of its goals. So this is the main difference between shareholder and stakeholder. Hope you guys understood it.